Well, I'm Kristen. I've been a part of our church family for a really long time, and I love Jesus, and I'm a crier. So here we go. I just feel like this is. I'm going to be talking about mercy today. I don't know. You can put the first slide up there if you want to, Chris. And this feels like, it feels like I sat with Jesus at the well, and he had mercy on me. And I'm coming back to the town to tell him what he said. This is what this feels like. I love Jesus. He's been so good to me. And I love mercy. My life's been completely and utterly transformed because of God's mercy. And I want to share some of my story with you today because I don't know a better way to minister to you than with my testimony. Specifically, I want to tell you about my relationship with my parents. They're going to be a big part of today's sermon. And I want to relay what God's done to restore my relationships with them through mercy. And it's been a complete and utter miracle what he's done between me and my mom and dad. So we can just leave that slide up there for a while. And I'll just, I guess, tell you when to go to the next. Okay, great. He already knows. Okay, so to show you how beautiful God's mercy has been, I have to tell you kind of how bad it was. And just want to preface what I'm about to say with God's turned my sorrow into dancing already. So I don't say this so that you can pity me, but rather so that you can see how good God is. And I really hope to glorify him with what he's done. So my mom and dad have a long, well, obviously they have a whole life's worth of, hardships on their own. They grew up in really difficult circumstances and environments. Both of them suffered outrageous trauma and abuse in their own childhoods, and they were not equipped to be parents when they had my sister and I. So have some compassion for them as I share what I'm about to. So I grew up, and there was a lot of domestic violence in my house. I was pretty severely neglected. I was like the dirty kid who didn't know that I was supposed to clean behind my ears and brush my teeth. I was that kid. They divorced when I was around 10, and my dad left at that time, I think because he was suffering a really bad depression of his own. But he wasn't there for me, and all I interpreted at the time when I was 10 was he left. I saw him maybe once a year, and he made very little effort to get to know me at all. I used to pop quiz Dad. The one time a year I saw him, I used to pop quiz, what's my middle name? What's my favorite color? Because I just wanted to know that he knew something about me. I stayed with my mom after the divorce, and she kind of spiraled into a really dark place. She was abusing alcohol and doing recreational drugs. She was physically abusive. Her punishments were frequent and unwarranted, and they always went too far. We moved around a lot because she dated a lot, and each new guy was worse than the last. We were homeless a couple of times. I remember trying to hide from my friends that we were living in the Motel 6 because I was really embarrassed. There's some shock value in what I'm about to say, and I don't mean for it to, but by the time I was 17, I'd been sexually abused by 12 different people. And that's because there was very little parental oversight in my life. I was a perfect target for predators because nobody was watching me. And so I learned, because of the way that my parents treated me or didn't treat me, to be invisible. I learned that I was a burden. I learned to make myself really small so as to not anger whoever was responsible for me. I learned to be responsible for myself. I grew up really fast. I learned to not ask for help. And I got really, really cold-hearted, hard-hearted. And I don't say all that to drag the reputations through the mud. I want to highlight how amazing God is. And the spoiler alert is he's going to turn all of this around. So in the midst of all of that, also, shout out to God, my parents were doing their best, but they didn't do a good job parenting me. But God did. I remember from a young age, one of the things my parents got right was they took us to church for a couple years when I was a kid, and I had the opportunity to learn about God, and I learned how to pray. I don't know how I learned how to pray. I think the Spirit just taught me, and I was a child and believed that the conversation I was having with God was real. I just believed. It was simple to me. And so growing up, he really did parent me. Like I remember one time my room was a mess and I was really overwhelmed by it. My mom told me to clean it and I just was like, this is not possible. It can't be cleaned. And I remember God comforting me, and like it was like peace fell on me like a blanket. And I remember I laid there in the middle of my mess, which felt a lot like my life. And he was just there with me. And that was my relationship with God. He used to tell me what to do, and I, for the most part, obeyed him. That changed. When I was 15, there was a boy who I was in love with already. And I really, really, really wanted to date this boy. And so I asked God, can I please date this boy? And this boy was bad news. But I didn't know that. I had very little radar for danger. And God said, absolutely not. And it was so clear to me that the answer was no. So I kept asking and pestering, God, please, can I date this boy? God, please, can I date this boy? God kept saying no. And it occurred to me, the Spirit taught me in that moment that I can't do the Jesus thing and do whatever I want. I can't have it both ways. He told me it's me or the boy. And so I remember very vividly, God had only been good to me. And I remember telling him out loud, I'll take the boy. I don't want you. I want the boy. So within a week, me and that boy were dating. And that was 15. So fast forward 2 years, I was deeply suicidal. I spent my weekends, like I remember being at a party one time and I was in the front lawn of someone's house and I drank so much, I was laying on the ground thinking, roll over before you black out, roll over before you black out. And that was my life. I got the boy. I got to do whatever I wanted to do, and that's where it led me. Life without God was horrific, and I am a true prodigal through and through. I found myself in a pigsty. Again, really hard-hearted. So by 17, I wasn't interested in God at all, not because I didn't think he was good, but because I knew he was. And I remember, really hard-hearted and young-minded and black and white in my thinking. Like, I really just believed that if you did something wrong, you should be punished for it. And there was no room for nuance. I believe mercy existed. I just didn't think it should. If you did something wrong, you should pay. And I was resigned to that. I wanted the world to burn, and I knew that I was a part of that. I remember thinking, I'm going to go to hell one day, and I just felt okay about that. This is kind of embarrassing. There's a tattoo behind my ear that I got when I was too young. It's Latin for justice, which I got because there's a character in a vigilante movie who goes around like killing people who did wrong things that has the same tattoo. And I mean, truly, like it's at my core, this is who I am. I'm merciless at my core. There is no room for mercy. And I have forever a tattoo to be reminded of that. So wanted nothing to do with God. And then somehow ended up in a church service. Somehow. I don't know how it happened. The summer going into college. Like, looking back, I can't remember if somebody invited me. I know I was there by myself, but I had no reason to be there. But they were singing this really dumb song, and I was telling myself while they were singing, I'm not going to accept God's mercy. I'm not going to accept God's mercy. And I'm pretty sure the song was Marvelous Light, which is so cheesy, but I love it. It's like, into marvelous light, I'm running out of darkness, out of shame. And again, so clearly, that voice that I'd been ignoring for 2 years popped back in my head, not audibly, but there God was. And I remember so vividly him saying, come home. Come home. I know, and come home. I know, and come home. And I remember being not surprised at all because I knew that's who he was, and also being shocked because I couldn't believe that God would be that good to me after what I did to him. And I remember telling him, if you're really this good, I'll follow you forever. And so I went home that day and bought a Bible and couldn't stop reading it and didn't understand a word. I got plugged into Focus, and the rest is history. But what do you think was the first thing that God asked me to do after he showed mercy to me? Yeah, reconcile with my mom and my dad. I thought that he was going to say, clean up your act, stop partying, stop sleeping with boys. I thought that he was going to say, get plugged into a community, do the right things, stop cursing, which I still haven't, I'm working on. But the first thing that he told me to do was to extend mercy to my mom and to my dad. And so I love this beatitude because it's true. And I know that it's true. I've experienced that it's true. And it's true today. It's not new heavens, new earth reality, although it is, but it's real and true for me today. I am a living example of God's mercy. I'm proof of it. So if you've ever been hurt or mistreated or abused or bullied or betrayed or sinned against, if you're the walking wounded, and all of you are, there's not a person in this room who hasn't been affected in some way by sin. Well, I have good news for you. In God's merciful kingdom, you're the blessed ones. Not the victims, not the pitiful, you're the blessed. And have you ever rebelled against God? Have you ever sinned or hurt someone or made a giant mistake? Well, I have good news for you. In God's kingdom, there is mercy enough for all of that if you'll only accept it. Blessed are the merciful, Jesus says, for they will be shown mercy. It's deceptively simple, but it's nearly impossible to execute in real life. And so I'm going to share 3 things that I'd like for us to think about and remember about mercy moving forward. And I'm going to try to be quick, but mostly I want you to know that this isn't a do as I say and not as I do kind of sermon. I know how difficult this is to live out, but God asks us to be merciful anyways. So I'm going to say some hard things today. And I hope that you'll catch a vision for how your life can change if you allow God's mercy to have its way with you. So the first of the 3 reminders is this. Mercy, that was good. He knew. That's because I turned around so obviously, huh? Mercy seeks to restore shalom. Okay, what does shalom mean? Peace. It's the Hebrew word for peace. So some nuance gets lost in translation with that, but when you think of the word shalom, think whole or complete. So it's not just like the absence of conflict. It's perfect wholeness, okay? So take a look at this picture. How would I restore this puzzle to shalom? You'd finish it. You'd find all the missing pieces, and you would put them in the right place. You'd make it whole. Next picture. Is that not a crime? Someone should go to jail immediately. How would you restore this pie to shalom? Eat the rest of it. I think this pie is beyond hope. I don't even know if there's something God could do for it. Okay, next picture. What about this rock? How would you restore this rock to shalom? You would bind it back together, okay? And that's what mercy aims to do. Mercy wants to restore peace, to restore shalom by filling in whatever's lacking, or mending whatever's been broken, or bringing back whatever's been lost. Mercy seeks to restore shalom, to restore to wholeness. And we see that this is true throughout the biblical narrative. So right at the very beginning, we're in shalom with God. Our relationship with him is whole. It's not broken. He's with us, we're with him. Everything's secure. And then we go and sin, and that relationship, it's like we smack it with a hammer. And we find ourselves separated from God. If our relationship with God is a rock, we cracked it down the middle. And so what does God do? He sets out on a mission of mercy, not justice, but a mission of mercy to restore our relationship to wholeness, to shalom. And mercy is the only thing that can accomplish this. Justice can't do that. Justice will only maintain the separation, it'll punish. And we know this, like, think when, someone commits a crime, they're often physically separated from society. And make no mistake, God is just. He has to be if he's to be good. But he doesn't take any joy in justice. He doesn't seek it out. He actually goes to some wild extremes to help us escape his justice. Think Jesus on the cross. He delights in showing mercy. That's Micah 7. He delights in showing mercy. Ephesians 2 puts it this way. But because of his great love for us, God, who is rich in mercy, made us alive with Christ. When we were dead in our transgressions, it is by grace you've been saved. Because of his great love for us, God, who is rich in mercy, loaded with mercy, made us alive with Christ even when we were dead in our transgressions. It is by grace you've been saved. So think of it this way. This analogy, don't think too hard about it because it does break down at some point. But so if you think in terms of percentages, okay, imagine I have a cup and it's filled to the brim with water, okay? The water representing 100% or wholeness and shalom, okay? If I dumped it out, all of a sudden it wouldn't be whole. And the only way to restore shalom would be to add some more water in, right? Fill it back up. Okay. So this is what God does for us. In our relationship with God, we dumped out the water, and God didn't say, okay, well, you messed up, so you put in 50 and I'll put in 50. He said, you messed up, I'm going to fill it to the freaking brim. That's what God did for us. He fills up whatever is necessary. Because when we poured out the cup, he was more concerned that the relationship was broken than he was that we spilled the water. And so God, in his mercy, will do whatever it takes to restore shalom because of his great love for us. So what did this look like with me and God? Obviously, I spit in his face and took the cup out of his hand and threw it on the ground and stomped on it. And he picked it up, mended the cup, and poured the water back in. And then he asked me to do the same thing with my mom and my dad. And it was a lot easier to do with my mom because she was sorry, and my dad still isn't. But as a very young, I was 18 by that point. I went and asked my mom if she'd study the Bible with me. I'd already forgiven her because God commanded me to, and he'd already forgiven me so much, and who was I to say no to a simple request? But I went and studied the Bible with her, and I didn't try to parent her. It wasn't a role reversal, but I was trying to restore my relationship with her. We weren't sweeping anything under the rug, but I was welcoming her back into my life as a changed person. Not that she'd changed, but I had. And I did the same with my dad. That took a lot longer, 7 or 8 years. It was tricky. I didn't know how, but God led me in mercy because He's good. And remember, it's not my nature. It's not because I'm good, it's because He is. And there's nothing about that that's fair, you'll notice. So it's the parent's job. I knew that at the time. It's the parent's job to maintain the relationship cup. It's my prayer that Evan never has to worry about that. I'm not even going to give him the cup. It's my cup. It's my cup. He can throw a tantrum and try to kick it out of my hands, and I will be at the sink faster than he can blink. That's my prayer for Evan. Evan's my child whose butt cream is on my mouth. But that's what God asked me to do with my mom and dad, which really flew in the face of what my culture was teaching me at the time. You know, we live in a no mercy culture. We really do. We live in they're toxic, remove yourself from their lives. There's no room for mercy in our culture. Next point. Mercy doesn't concern itself with what's fair. So now, obviously, God values fairness, okay? He commands His people to take great care of those who are in weaker positions of power, to pay special attention to systems of the world that are set up to exalt some and demean others. We're told to hold ourselves to incredibly high standards of ethics in this world while we bear His name. God cares a lot about fairness. And obviously, He doesn't always prioritize it. If He did, none of us would be here. We don't deserve mercy. We don't deserve shalom with God. We forfeited that, and we continue to forfeit that all the time. So there's an invitation here to embrace the complexity of God's mind and His character. He cares about fairness, and sometimes He doesn't. He delights in showing mercy, and mercy doesn't concern itself with what's fair. For our sake, God puts fairness aside in favor of shalom. Fairness matters, but shalom matters more. And isn't that wild? I think that's the thing that's impossible for us to emulate without the Spirit of God. We're hardwired to want the bad guys punished, aren't we? It's every movie that we care about. We want them to get what's coming to them, their just desserts. But that is not the heart of God. He puts fairness aside in favor of mercy. He doesn't delight in punishment. He delights in mercy. But we're wired the opposite way. We get bitter so fast. We get resentful when somebody hurts us. We pray that God will squish our enemies like bugs. But not Jesus. Jesus told us to love and to pray for our enemies. We keep records of wrongs. We're not going to wipe the slate clean. We just won't, or it won't be easy, not without an act of God. We might be cordial with them, but we're not going to embrace them fully back into our lives. We'll always kind of have a hand up. We're going to say that we've forgiven them, but then disparage them behind their backs and try to damage their reputations while bolstering our own. We'll be passive aggressive. We'll withdraw emotionally. We'll ice them out. Or maybe we'll go the aggressive route and we'll jab at them with sharp little quips. Maybe we'll just be hypersensitive to all of their flaws and their weaknesses. We'll come down really hard on them for every little thing that they do wrong. We'll be irritated with them for their immaturity. And just as an aside here, the best relationships are filled to the brim with mercy. The best marriages, the best friendships, the best parent-child relationships, and they have to be filled with mercy. Because in order to be deep and meaningful relationships, you're going to bump up against their sin at some point. Their character flaws, and the ways that they aren't like Jesus yet. But mercy doesn't demand perfection. Mercy doesn't demand perfection. In fact, it expects imperfection. So be merciful in the little stuff. Be merciful in the little stuff. If you've got a spouse who lacks self-discipline, sorry, Pedro. Listen, I'm trying to do what I said that I was going to do when I told him I would do the dishes 3 days ago, and they're still in the sink. But I married a merciful man because God's been merciful to me. And I think he knew that I would need Pedro. I needed a Hosea kind of man. And so Pedro's just going to do the dishes. And he's not going to berate me for it. He's merciful with the little stuff and the big stuff. And there's been some big stuff. So Taylor and I lead a small group. There's like 10 of us in there. And honestly, like 90% of us have some significant issues with our parents. Another reason for the sermon today. And it's not petty. So like we go around the room at the end of our small groups and we share prayer requests, and we try to be we learned this from Natalie. We try to be really open about our hurts and what's going on in our lives. We try to listen to one another. And they're really not being petty about the damage that their parents have caused. And there's 3 themes that come up regularly in our small group during that time that I want to share with us here to see if you can relate. I know I can. First is, they hurt me and they haven't owned up to it. They hurt me and they haven't owned up to it. So do you hear how this is about fairness, not about mercy? They hurt me and they haven't owned up to it. In other words, if they will own up to it, maybe I'll forgive them. That's not mercy. Mercy, the onus is on me to forgive, not you. Another theme, they hurt me and I just can't understand. How could they? I can't understand it. In other words, I cannot accept that they are imperfect people who are capable of evil. Also, I think I'm better than them. They hurt me, and I didn't do anything wrong. They hurt me, and I didn't do anything wrong. But this is still concerned about the scales of justice. We have to be merciful with the little stuff, but we have to be merciful with the big stuff too. And I know how difficult this is. Some sins are so egregious that the mere idea of mercy makes us nauseous. But I encourage you to be people who remember Jesus. Remember what he suffered. Is there a picture of him up there? It's the Passion of it. That's Hollywood version. It was worse in real life. Remember who Jesus is, what he suffered. He was rejected and oppressed by the people who were supposed to love him. He was threatened, spit at, mocked, insulted, belittled, demeaned, misunderstood. People spoke poorly of him. All of his best friends betrayed him when he needed them the most. He was beaten beyond recognition, tortured, and left to die in the most humiliating way. And while he was dying on the cross, what did he pray? Lord, forgive them. They don't know what they're doing. It was pure mercy, and it was brutal. But mercy often is brutal. It's costly. While we were far off, Jesus sacrificed that day so that we could be brought near. Our relationship with God was empty, and we couldn't keep the cup filled up. We weren't very good at the law. And so Jesus stuck the cup into a waterfall of his own blood, and he said, drink this in remembrance of me. It's never going to be empty again. That's mercy, and there's nothing about it that was fair. A student is not above his teacher, and a servant is not above his master. Anyone who wants to be my disciple, Jesus says, must take up their cross and follow me. God is as merciful with the big hurts as he is with the little ones. He doesn't concern himself with what's fair. Do you? He prioritizes shalom. Do you? Last thing. If you give it, you'll get it, and if you don't, you won't. If you give it, you'll get it, and if you don't, you won't. That's the thing about mercy. It's tricky business, mercy. So let's read. This is from Matthew 18. I got it on the screen for you. Just follow along with me. Then Peter came to Jesus and asked, Lord, how many times shall I forgive my brother or sister who sins against me? Up to 7 times? Jesus answered, I tell you, not 7 times, but 77 times. Therefore, the kingdom of heaven is like a king who wanted to settle accounts with his servants. As he began the settlement, a man who owed him 10,000 bags of gold was brought to him. Since he was not able to pay, the master ordered that he and his wife and his children and all that he had be sold to repay the debt. At this, the servant fell on his knees before him. Be patient with me, he begged, and I will pay back everything. The servant's master took pity on him, canceled the debt, and let him go. But when that servant went out, he found one of his fellow servants who owed him 100 silver coins. He grabbed him and began to choke him. Pay back what you owe me, he demanded. His fellow servant fell to his knees and begged him, please be patient with me, I will pay it back. But he refused. Instead, he went off and had the man thrown into prison until he could pay the debt. When the other servants saw what had happened, they were outraged and went and told their master everything that had happened. Then the master called the servant in. You wicked servant, he said. I canceled all that debt of yours because you begged me to. Shouldn't you have had mercy on your fellow servant just as I had on you? In anger, his master handed him over to the jailers to be tortured until he should pay back all that he owed. Now this is how my heavenly Father will treat each of you unless you forgive your brother or sister from your heart, or your mom, or your dad, or your kid, or your friend. Now this is how my heavenly Father will treat each of you unless you forgive your brother or sister from your heart. So terrible news for the unmerciful, for they will not be shown mercy. Jesus makes this really clear. The measure you use will be used unto you. It's pivotal to the way that he thinks about the kingdom. It's right there in the Lord's Prayer. Forgive us our trespasses as we forgive those who trespass against us. That's the King James Version. Those of us who live lives that are not merciful should not expect to receive the mercy of God. So I'm going to leave that there because I don't want this to end on terrible news because it is wonderful news. Wonderful news for the merciful, for they really will be shown mercy. I don't really see this as a threat from God. I see it more as an invitation. God's throwing a party, and the way to get in is he got you a ticket. Everyone gets one, and it's mercy. You accept God's mercy, you can come in. You can stay in if you're merciful, and you'd want to be, because mercy's awesome. And I want to paint a picture for what mercy can do and how beautiful it is to live in his kingdom of mercy. So picture my mom up there. That's my mommy. Look at that. Think about who I grew up with. Think of that. That's my mom. That's what God did. That's my baby, by the way. To the day that she dies, she'll be loved by me. You officially know more about my childhood, by the way, than she does, and I wouldn't want her to know if you ever see her. It would cause her unnecessary pain. To the day that she dies, our cup will be full. Is there one of my dad? Look at him. It's my dad. 8 years it took. But look what God did. He called me yesterday, and I was really happy to hear his voice. I love my dad. And now I still have boundaries with them, obviously. Evan's not going to go and spend a week with his grandparents. That's not happening. I don't have, and I'm not disparaging this, I don't have what Bree has with Ronnie. I'm never going to. But I don't need that because I do have what Bree has with Abba Father. All my needs are met in God. I don't need anything from my mom and dad. I can just love them. God's filled in all that was lacking with his mercy. And he's freed me up to fill in what's lacking with my mom and dad. I'm not parenting them. I'm not trying to get them to change. I know who they are, and I can just love them with boundaries. So wonderful news for the merciful. God will have mercy on you. Wonderful news for the merciful. God will have mercy on you, and you're going to need it. Wonderful news for the merciful. You really are going to be shown mercy, which is the very heart and nature of God. If you want to get to know God, have mercy on somebody. You'll know him more intimately than you could any other way. Have mercy on somebody, and you'll be shown the heart of God. It's wonderful news because your future relationships will be secure. So they won't be dependent on the other person anymore. So like Pedro and I, Taylor, is Taylor here? She's in JAM, of course she is. The teacher also signed up to work in JAM. Taylor can hurt my feelings. She will. We've got hopefully another 50, 60 years of friendship. She's going to hurt me bad one day. That's all right. My future with her is secure because I've decided already to have mercy. And she's decided already to have mercy. I don't have any, I'm not walking on eggshells trying to be perfect for her so that she doesn't leave me in friendship. Wonderful news for the merciful. Your future relationships are secure. Wonderful news for the merciful. You'll be free from being stuck and you're hurt all the time. The unmerciful, or the people who are really trying to be merciful. I remember it took me 8 years with my dad. I know how hard it is. But when you're stuck in unmercy, you really are trapped in it. You're not free. You're not free. But wonderful news for the merciful. You'll be free. And you'll become really hard to offend. So it's more than a threat. It really is an invitation to this beautiful kingdom way of life. So I'm going to leave you with this. Hear this as a warning. Let God lead you in mercy. Let God lead you in mercy. So it's clear, God wants you to be merciful to everyone who sins against you in your life, past, present, or future. There's no debating that. But what that looks like will vary on a case-by-case basis, which is why we need to learn to develop an ear to hear God's voice in our lives. So there are people in my life who God didn't lead me to bring back into communication, okay? But I can say that when they cross my mind, I pray that God has mercy on them, and I mean it. I want to see them in heaven. From the bottom of my heart, I mean it. Along the way, God's taken into consideration my immaturity, my capacity for pain at various points in my life, my safety. There are 100 other factors that he took into consideration as he led me in mercy. And he's still doing that. So just because God led me the way that he did with my parents doesn't mean that he'll do the same with you. And I really believe that there's no relationship that God can't restore shalom to. So be open. Be open to God doing a new thing. Maybe mercy for you looks like asking God to begin that work just in your heart, just to begin that work. So seek wisdom and get advice from people for sure. People who, love Jesus, and as you work to figure out what he'd have you do. But remember, as you're doing that, as you're seeking wisdom and advice, let God lead you in mercy. So your pastor isn't God. Listen to them, but they aren't God. Your therapist isn't God. Your TikTok isn't God. Your feelings are not God. You let God be God. And even if the whole world tells you that this is stupid and you're being a pushover and you're whatever, if he tells you to have mercy, you have mercy. Your life will be better for it. Trust him. Let him lead you in how that's supposed to look. So worship team, you guys can come up, right? And I'm just going to ask you some questions and I'll pray us out. Are you merciful? Are you full of mercy? Are your relationships filled to the brim? Do you delight in showing mercy? Are you like God in that way? If anyone's come to mind for you as I've been preaching, let God lead you in mercy towards that person. For your sake, please. I'm going to pray. God, you've been so good, God. We're not here because we're good. We're here because you are. You're so merciful, and we're thankful for you, and we love you, and we ask that you continue to bestow mercy upon us every morning. We need some new mercy. We love you. Amen.
Great job. That was great. Kristen mentioned this real briefly, but I just want to highlight it real quick. If anybody needs help with that process, come see one of us. Go see Kristen afterwards. Come see me afterwards. One of our other pastors, anybody who you've seen up here, if you don't know directly who to go to. Huge. Thank you, thank you, thank you. You spoke the words of God, and it's up to us to respond to that. And if you need help with that, come let somebody help you. Amen.